Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres. When I'm not hosting this podcast, I am the head of executive search at Dwyer Partners, recruiting senior leaders in consumer goods and retail, which is exactly what we talk about on this podcast, in which we're now over 170 episodes in. So do go into our website, we only have one for now, www.fmcgguys.com, or your favorite podcast platform, to entertain yourself and hopefully be educated with some of the industry's top voices. Remember, we are part of a family of podcasts, which is headed by the CPG guys in the US, with 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, or 32,000 followers on LinkedIn. So they generate a lot of content related to the omnichannel world in consumer goods in the US, which they call CPG. We're also on LinkedIn with a growing community of now 15,000 plus members and counting. So do make sure to follow us there to hear about our latest episodes, or whenever we go to events or other industry news. And yes, not alone here. Happily accompanied by my co-host, Efrain Rosario from Diageo. Hey, Efrain, how are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you, Daniel, as always. Although I just saw you this week, so I guess it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, I know. You've seen a lot of me lately. I'm sorry about that. You've seen me in Barcelona, in London, and I think probably we'll see each other in Amsterdam soon again.
I was going to say Amsterdam is next, so coming this fall.
Exactly. More details to come. So yeah, I'm very happy to witness an MBA reunion here with our guest today, which is Raphael Savalle, Group CFO at Weleda, MBA classmate of Efrain, right?
Exactly. As we were saying before we started recording, we're about to hit a big milestone in our MBA lives, Raphael and I. So yeah, it's always good to reconnect with friends from days of Kellogg past.
So hi, Raphael. How are you doing?
Hello, hi Daniel, hi Frank. Well, great to be with you, and yes, great to be with my classmate of 25 years almost. You know,
he gave it away.
It's probably on your LinkedIn profiles anyway.
True. Yeah, it's not a very well guarded secret. Let's say that.
Exactly. Raphael, I need to ask you, what was Efrain like as a classmate? Was he the typical one that arrived the day of the exam asking for notes?
Efrain was very studious, you know, and he was a good classmate, and we had a lot of common friends as well. So I've got the best souvenir of Efrain, you know.
And funny enough, we found out that we have a France connection here, in that Raphael's family owns property in the same town that I live in, just outside of Paris. So it really is a small world. And one of our other classmates also happens to have family in this same little town. So it's amazing the connections we have.
Very small world, yes.
Indeed. So Raphael, we know so far that you did an MBA at Kellogg. Tell us a bit about your work experience, because obviously looking at your LinkedIn profile, there's some big names there: Coty, Bell, Unilever, Weleda. So how did that come all together?
Yeah. Well, you know, so before my MBA, I graduated. I'm an engineer by training. I graduated with a master in electrical engineering, and I did continue with a master in industrial organization. And I worked as a consultant before the business school with Efrain. And after my MBA, you know, there was a choice of, you know, should I go back to consulting or should I do something different? And I wanted to do something different and have, like, you know, an impact, really work in the real world, I would call it. So I worked on one of the largest retail bankruptcy restructuring in the US. It was a $3 billion multi-channel retailer. You know, in the US, the name is well known as Eddie Bauer or Spiegel, a general merchandiser and fashion retailer. And this really gave me an appreciation for, you know, value creation in time of very, very high challenge. You know, when you're in bankruptcy, those times are very hard and they call for decisive leadership and actions. So not your regular classic post-MBA role, I would say. But for me, it was actually really, you know, something I really enjoyed, really liked. It's not about political games, but it's about, you know, leading change and bringing back trust and confidence around new plans for all of the stakeholders, be it suppliers, creditors, employees. So it's creating something new, right? So it's very exciting. And, you were asking, how did I go into Unilever or Coty? Following this bankruptcy experience and driving that, I was thinking, well, I really like to do finance. It has a huge impact, an impact for good, actually, because you can really create something new and valuable. At the same time, I wanted to be in an environment of brand and consumer. So it was, kind of natural for me to, that led me to Unilever. I had a fantastic time at Unilever. It's a fantastic company. It's a well-known company, very international. Eventually, I became the head of finance or the CFO for Dove, or the Dove brand globally, which is still like the largest brand for Unilever. And that's how I got, into finance really, and into those consumer and brand environment.
And you did your career at Unilever still in the US, right? So you moved to the US for the MBA and then stayed there for quite a number of years.
Yeah. Despite my accent, actually, I spent most of my time in the US. Indeed, going to Chicago for the business for Kellogg, with Northwestern University, transitioning to Unilever eventually in Chicago and then in New York. And then I remained, in the US. We stayed there for more than 12 years, 10 to 15 years, essentially. I became, after Unilever, I wanted to have more, independence or more impact, and that's how I joined Bell, which is the, well known for the laughing cow and the mini baby Bell, the red round cheese. And I think at one point when you're in a big group, it may relate to many people. You are thinking, what's really my impact, and how can I really, see the results of my action, right? So that I was longing for that, and that's how I became the full-fledged CFO, if you want, for Americas, and that was appealing to me. But still in the US, in New York, yeah.
What's fascinating to me, Raphael, is hearing about your experiences both at Bell, but then also when you moved back to Europe, and the role you've played in leading large-scale transformations at some of these well-known brands. And would just love to hear, and you kind of referenced it a little bit earlier on around, leading change and bringing back confidence in something new at these large, well-known brands. Just curious to hear from you, as you've led these large transformations at some of these brands that we know and love, what's been the most fulfilling part in that process for you?
Yeah, I think it's all about people, I was going to say, right? So it's how you can help, because, when you say you lead, I want to be humble here, right? But the first minute you lead, you realize that you need help. And you need help, and means that you need to have the engagement of many more people, right? So and at Dove, I was very excited because I was able to witness that, or to be part of that. I joined at a time where Dove became a global brand, a global brand. I was going to say a global company, but Dove used to be a very local brand in every area, in every continent, managed very differently. And Dove was one of the first brands to have a purpose. Real beauty for real women was the position that Dove took at this time, and it was very engaging for everyone, every associate and every customer and retailer, and that was a big change. And we transformed really the business and the brand based on this vision. And when I came back to Europe, I joined Coty. We decided as a family that we wanted to give our children some experience in Europe. And when I joined Coty, it's the fragrance and beauty company. I joined as a CFO of the global operations and procurement and supply chain. And at the time, it was 3,600 employees. So a large business unit, I would say. And I worked with the head of this unit, which was Darryl McCall, who was at the time the executive leader for all of operations, and is very highly regarded as one of the very good leader in the consumer goods sector. And I witnessed here as well, and I learned from him, and I learned how to transform, this business unit. And he had understood as, that if you want to reach superior results and superior performance and get in some way out of the normal way, Coty needed to change the culture from a command and control, from a directive one, to a culture of empowerment and entrepreneurship and leadership at every level of the organization. When people talk about leadership, they think executive leaders, but actually leadership can be exerted at every level of the company. And if you can free the energy and the brains, the passion of everyone and engage them and align them, on your vision, it becomes a very powerful force, right? So the question was that how do we engage 3,600 employees across continents and align them on a vision while still giving them freedom to lead? So we worked with Coty, with Professor Coty, who is a prof at Harvard, on this change method, and we work with them and with him to really create leaders in every place possible. And when we could, have their help, then we started a big transformation of this culture. And for me, it was a great life lesson and management lesson as well on change management and on cultural change at major scale, not, on a small scale. And that's, what at Weleda as well came to play, I would say. But that's, I think you take it, you learn it, and then you say, hey, maybe I can use it when it comes to time, right?
No, and it's great that you, as a functional leader, if you like as a finance guy, if you want to call it like that, you were really like working on the cultural aspect, which is something that all companies should strive towards, because it's like a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, the cultural part, let HR manage that part, but it's really like every department and every leader has to be doing like a conscious effort and work a specific number of hours on that cultural aspect, because that's like really like the lifeblood of an organization.
Yeah, the way I learned it or the way I saw it is culture is not something that you put on a paper.
No.
With, what are our leadership values, and then you put it everywhere on the wall, right? Culture is what you do.
Exactly.
Every day, day in, day out, how you act, how you lead, how you become a role model, because people then get it, right? And they understand, okay, what is expected, and they model that as well,
Totally.
And that becomes the culture. So culture comes from the top with action every day. It helps to communicate about it. I'm happy with posters and leadership values and so on, and to provide directive for everyone. But I think it's really something that you lead and you live, and it needs to be real, concrete, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember once I worked with a client and I asked them like, what's your culture like? And then they just said like all these like 5 sentences that, oh yeah, we just agreed on what our culture is. And that's like, when you hear that, it's like either your company doesn't have like a culture, or you're not really understanding what culture is, and you're not doing this exercise properly. And by the way, speaking out Coty, I think you left at quite an interesting moment, no? Because you left at the moment or just before they merged with Procter & Gamble's prestige business unit, right? Which that is also a good case study for cultural mismanagement, I have to say.
Well, I'm not sure I want to go into that, but but I was happy, sometimes I believe life's, you are where you are for a reason, right? In some way. So, I got to leave Coty indeed, just before the acquisition of the P&G prestige and fragrance business. It was a time where, Coty had just done, we had done the IPO. Coty had been extremely successful as a very fast, agile, entrepreneurial, newcomer fragrance and beauty business. And there was a real sense of entrepreneurship when I joined Coty. And that led to the IPO, right? And the IPO, I remember, was at 15. The stock price went to 30, And then there was a change of leadership, and I would say it starts with the top, right? And those change of leadership, probably led Coty into a strange path for maybe for like 5-6 years, right? I could say. And then the share price, as we know, went down to 2, 5, 6. Eventually, now it's on a better path, I would say, and it's recovering. But it's another company. So I think it's all I can say. Leadership is very important, and now it's on a different trajectory. So that's really exciting, actually.
So thinking about another company, I'd love to hear how your mindset with the role you took on at Bauer Media.
Yeah.
And it felt like, at least from reading it in your bio, it sounded like a new space for you in regards to moving into the world of digital, moving into the world of media. Was that part of your mindset when you chose to make that change in regards to building a new skill in a new area?
No, that's true, actually. What happened, actually, is that a former colleague of Unilever called me and said, hey, would you like to work on this, online platform? And I was like, hey, why not, and I felt like it would be a fantastic opportunity to learn, those digital marketing skills, right? And it was the world of fintech, and that was very hot. And, that's how I joined the business. And in fact, the context was that Bauer Media had acquired a string of online platform, so, online comparison platform. And I don't know, maybe you are familiar in the UK with Monet Supermarket, or in France with Meilleur-Taux, or in Spain with Rastreator or Acierto.
Mm-hmm.
But, they are like, you know them, right, Daniel? They are like, comparison platform. And the geography covered were Spain, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia. So, quite a pan-European business. But Bauer Media core business is really in paper magazine and newspaper and radio, which is very mature, very, nothing to do with fintech.
No.
So the owner was opportunistic, but really had not many ideas on how to manage or incentivize or drive the business on what were essentially at this time still scaled up startup. So there was a strange match, right? So of newspaper and magazine business with fintech. But, this being said, from my, as a leader here, I joined as a CFO, eventually became interim CEO. It was the time of COVID. So it was like, very interesting in terms of leadership. But if you think of it, digital platforms are very much like online retailers. You curate an assortment of suppliers like banks and insurance company. They provide products like car insurance, home insurance, line of credit, financing, that kind of things. And you provide a service which is to rank them or to provide the best, product for your customer, right, for your consumer. And your role as a platform is really to attract traffic and convert this traffic, right, using a funnel, conversion funnel. So the business model is that you, at the end of the day, you get a fee or a commission from every transaction. So in many ways, it's a brand and consumer-driven and focused business, where brand is critical to attract organic traffic. It's very much like a retailer as well, where you want to have the best assortment, the best price, the best condition, so that your consumer and your traffic gets converted, right? But for me, the leadership challenge was really to lead as an interim CEO during the time of COVID. We had many people in call center, about 1,200 associates in call centers, that all of a sudden, over 2 weeks, you need to get to work from home. And of course, it's always in the case of turbulence that people want to borrow, want to get cheaper car insurance, but that's at the same time where the banks are much more, are colder. They just don't want to lend money. So it's difficult to be in a position where you've got lots of traffic, lots of demand, but very little offer to provide, right? So it's always how to manage this supply and demand as well.
And the whole idea of how you make money selling service or media versus selling a product in consumer goods is also completely different. No, I think that all generates like a different mindset as well. Like, because it's different type of margin, different type of cost, right?
Yeah, it's different type of margin. But what actually is very interesting is that very quickly we said, look, we don't have the product we want. because you start to get to know very much your consumer, right? What they are looking at, what they want. But none of the you realize very quickly that you don't have the product that you need for them. And then what was interesting is that you start to design specific product. And I know my consumer so well. I know that if I can do actually a car insurance only, or dedicated for women, I can get like a very good price, because those women have, fewer car incidents and they are much less, costly, right? But if the offer is not there on the market, then you can design that. So that was very. So once you're in consumer goods, you get back to it, right?
That's what happens. That's what happens. People. I've known. Obviously, I've met a lot of people that have left FMCG and they just keep on coming back, right?
Yeah, you see the gap, right? You see the void, and you say, "Oh my gosh, we should do our own, insurance private label, right?" Or you've got an underwriter, and then you can define your own product. So that was exciting. Yeah.
So speaking about FMCG pulling you back in, it now kind of takes us to your current role and like moving over into Weleda. And I'm curious to understand, well, first off, tell us a little bit about the company, but also what drew you to the opportunity to join the business.
Yeah, no, that's great. So Weleda is a fantastic company. It's a 100 years old company plus, founded in 1921. Founded by Ita Wegman, who was one of the first practicing medical doctor who graduated in Switzerland. She actually was Dutch, and why did she come to Switzerland? Is because the faculty of Zurich was the only faculty at this time to award degrees to women. So,
what year are we talking about?
The company was founded in 1921, and I guess she got her medical degree like a few years before, right?
Yeah.
It was founded as well with Rudolf Steiner, who was a philosopher with some ideas and a lot of written books, right? Initially, it was created as a manufacturer of natural remedies to help cure Ita Wegman patients in her hospital. And today, it's very much a woman company, I would say. It's been founded by a woman. We have about 75% of female employees. Mm-hmm. Since October, we have like a woman CEO, Tina Müller, from Germany.
Oh yes, ex-Douglas.
Yeah, exactly, ex-Douglas as well. And I've got the pleasure and delight to work with her every day. And our mission, is to combine beauty and health. So we look to unfold health and beauty in harmony with nature. And when I say in harmony with nature, it's, we cultivate our own gardens. We have our own field of flowers. Right now the calendula harvest is taking place. And calendula is this flower that we use in our creams, in some of our remedies, and that has very calming properties for your skin. We harvest them and we prepare our extracts, and then we eventually use them in our natural products. So it's very unique, So we are a natural company, organic. We extract the power of nature to craft potent remedies. And this, since 100 years. So we have been into the green, movement, but, from the founding, right? So that's what makes Weleda very unique. And what makes it very unique is that it was created very early on as a very multinational company. So the US business, for example, is 98 years old. So it was founded a long time ago. New Zealand, Australia, a lot of affiliates were created a long time ago. But profit was never at the center of the story. It was also always about, how do we care for our patients? How do we provide the best of nature to our to customer, right, or to consumer?
Consumer-centric from the very start.
Well, actually, yeah, patience. I would say patience. Really, patient. Our pharma business is. I often say our pharma business is the heart of Weleda, and our cosmetic or natural, organic, skincare, healthcare, face care product is our muscle, because that's we sustain a lot of our scale with those products. So it's a very fascinating company, actually.
Nice.
So So it sounds like you were saying that what I'm hearing from what you said is that, like you said, from the very beginning, the company has been very purpose driven and very consumer or patient centric. It sounds like part of what the opportunity was for you coming in as CFO was to talk about I guess, the other side of the coin, which is the
The
profit
other side, yes.
part of the equation.
Yeah. The other side or one side of the same coin, like you
True.
would say.
That's probably a better way to say it.
No, it's true. How did I join Weleda? Well, Weleda was a bit in a dire strait at the time I joined, actually. Weleda was loss making because, again, profit was never part of the, objective or priorities. And the year 2022 was a tough year, you may remember, with the war starting in Ukraine, a lot of inflation taking place, all of the consumption.
And you know what happened worse when Efrain and I started doing the podcast together?
Of course, as well, yeah. And 22 was very volatile, right? And
it was the year where like the post-pandemic party really ended.
Exactly.
Like it really crashed.
Exactly. And Weleda was taken into this turmoil. And at the same time, Weleda had embarked into a massive investment to build the most sustainable logistics center in Germany. So we are very proud of this logistics center because it's made of clay and wood, and it's completely self-sustainable and energy efficient with geothermal and solar panel. I mean, it's amazing. But it has a cost, and this project was underway, and it's difficult to fund a project when you're not making profit. And I joined at this time where the cash drain was, 5 to 7 million per month. And the banks essentially that had initially agreed to support us, they just stopped that. I mean, they how can I say? They revised their commitment. And then we had to, and it's again about trust and stakeholder engagement on how you recreate, trust around the project. So it took us a bit of time, and we worked over Christmas a lot to reignite this, trust and alignment. Finally, we were able to get the support of a syndicate of banks, and we got, our liquidity back. At the same time, we started to make profit and performance something that was more important for Weleda, and that resulted into back to growth, back to profit, and back to positive cash. But the key was really to bring performance and profit and reconcile it with purpose, right? And to explain to everyone that you cannot have sustainable purpose without having a sustainable financials. And for that, I got some help, actually. I got some help from our founding father and mother, if I can say. I told you about Rudolf Steiner, and I told you that he was a philosopher, right? And that he had written a lot of things about many things. And I was able to read, because I was a bit in an impasse or in a cul-de-sac, right? I was like, how can I engage everyone to consider profitability and financial, resilience as a key priority, when it has not been the case for the past 10 years, right? When the purpose and naturality and has been all on the forefront, which is fine, but you cannot forget the other part of the equation or the other part of the coin. And I was able to find, in what Rudolf Steiner had written, that yes, Rudolf Steiner said, if you don't make profit with an activity, it means that your activity is not worth being done at all. And if you make a profit, it means that it's valuable. It's valued by people, and therefore you've got the right to continue it, right? So that helped me a lot, because he had written a few other things around performance, self-development, personal growth. And I really, got his help and was able to communicate that to our, to the organization. And the organization started to help and really understand. And we went together into this turnaround, essentially. And that's, a bit of a change or I don't say if a change or evolution, because at the end of the day, it's going back to the founding principle. We are here to manufacture a great product with great quality and make a profit. And and that's the way we best serve our mission and our purpose, which is to, deliver great product, take care of the earth. We've got a lot of initiatives to actually conserve soil, preserve biodiversity. And so it's great to see this coming all together now.
Yeah, I think that so ultimately, as you said about the founding principle, the company wouldn't be here 100+ years later if it hadn't had profit during this time, no? And that's what you reinvest, what you used to reinvest to have ultimately a bigger impact on society, no? Because without that profit, the company's never gonna be able to have more of that impact ultimately. And I think that sometimes companies become a bit too internal and self-focused and forget.
Exactly. So this idea of providing a profit means that the customer values what you are doing is very important. It's very center. But at the same time, so we are a B Corp, for example. Mm-hmm. But for me, being efficient is also at the core of our mission, right? Because if we are very efficient, our usage of resources, be it water, energy, raw material, therefore is done in the best way. So we don't waste any resources. And what's the best way to actually be, living our purpose of taking care of the earth and taking care of the soil if we are not efficient, So it's the best way for us is to be efficient. And if you are very efficient, then, you'll be even more profitable. So, and then, you can reinvest into great project like having, natural renewable energy pretty much everywhere, and that's what we do actually.
So speaking of efficiency, I'm curious to get your perspective on AI, because we would be remiss if we didn't mention AI in every single podcast or every conversation that we have. But I'm actually curious to get your perspective in terms of a tangible use case in regards to, are you guys able to use AI in ways in that efficiency you just referred to?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fascinating because, so we need to bring Weleda into the modernity, into being relevant and, still with strong roots 100 years ago, still with strong roots in the fields, but actually we need to dream and look into the future, right? That's what we want to do. Actually, last year, we started this initiative to bring artificial intelligence at Weleda, and was helped by a great team. They had already been thinking about, digital ethics, and they were, really working on good topics. But we brought essentially Gen AI inside Weleda. So essentially, we built our own ChatGPT, if you want. It's called We Ask Weleda. So it's available for everyone inside the company. You can, it's really cool because we fed the model with our own knowledge, right? With our own document. So now you can ask, what is the potency of this plant, Arnica montana? And, this would be and we ask Weleda, our Gen AI will give you all of what Weleda knows about Arnica montana, which is a lot. And we use it in our product. And of course, now people are getting to use it more and more. It's available for everyone, for translation. We've got to do a lot of medical dossier, for our product because it's highly regulated. We've got to translate that. So it's very helpful for everyone. It does accelerate the productivity of everyone. So, it's been kind of the first foundation. What we do as well is that we are starting to scan our archive and teach the model, right, with those data. So it's starting to be really cool. And the next step for us is to bring more machine learning model and more predictive model as well for sales forecasting or things like that. But we, we all think it's important to bring this technology in-house, that we get all of our employees exposed to it, that they can learn from it and become more productive, as you said. And we want them to grow. And actually, the reaction of all of our associates was extremely positive. They love it, they use it, they feel it's really make their work, in many ways simpler. And in case you could not imagine, in procurement, how to find a new supplier, in ways that it was surprising to us, actually. So it's coming. We're making Weleda still very grounded, but with artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Which sometimes seems like you can't do one with the other, but I think that these are good examples of how can artificial intelligence really, like, how you can use that to empower your teams ultimately. And that doesn't mean that the decisions will ultimately be done with a human mind, but if we can have better tools to get more information to get the right decisions done, why not? No?
Yeah, exactly. And it accelerates really the thinking process, right? It gets you a huge head start on many topics. So, and if you can teach the model with your own data, it's even becoming more relevant, right?
Yeah. What about like Weleda? Where would you say the business is now? And in what direction is it going? What's the vision for the business?
Yeah. No, thank you for giving me this opportunity. So Weleda is, continues to grow, to develop. As I said, we started from the scratch, as being a very international business. Our international business is very successful in the US, in Spain, in UK, in Benelux, in Nordics, and so on. Our core business, our historical business, is in Germany, Switzerland, and France. And those are markets where we are more mature, but we want to continue to develop. The vision, is to grow, and we want to, we've got this ambition that, in the next maybe 6 years, we manage to double the size of the business, because we've got really fantastic product. And with Tina, we believe that, they've been underexposed, right? That, no one knows really what makes us different. But when they start to use the product and to learn about how we craft those unique products, then people get, really hooked. So Weleda, it's about becoming more international, more digital, with, online sales and all of our digital tools, more innovative with, Tina, as Douglas, has done a lot of, innovation as well. So to have a brand that is refreshed, so more innovative, and probably more premium as well, because, we see a lot of opportunity in this area. We have, I often say, people don't realize that in our shower gel, we only use natural essential oils for our fragrance. And I can tell you, there are no even fragrance company now using natural essential oils in their fragrance. So we use Rolls-Royce in our product, and people don't realize that. So we want to really show how our products are so premium, and I believe that it's a growth area. So digitalization, internationalization, innovation, and premiumization is really where we see the business going forward.
Yeah, I think that probably, if I can give my opinion, just how I see it as somebody that's around the industry, because I've been headhunting in consumer goods and retail for 11 years. I feel like all this story, all this heritage that you have, if you have a great product, I think you just need to have better storytelling, no? And
Exactly. So it's a hidden gem, hidden jewel. We have been there 100 years before many people. The quality is unparalleled. But, it's interesting that, we are very successful with our face care product, with Skin Food and the face care line. But one of our historical strengths is actually the baby care. Mm-hmm. And, when mother wants to really take care of their children and they are okay to go a bit more premium, our baby care and our Calendula line of nappy cream is the best seller, pretty much around the world. Wow. So, mother, when they take care of their children, they go for very good quality, and that has been our enduring success for forever. So we are applying that now to face care as well, and that's exciting.
Yeah. So this has been great. Hey, Raphael, it's been wonderful to one, just to reconnect, but two, to hear about this amazing success story that you're helping to lead at Weleda. And I'm sure our audience will want to hear more. So we'll make sure that that they'll be able to hear more about and learn about Weleda in the months to come. We have one last question for you, and this is a question that we ask all of our guests, and I think it's great, particularly given the diversity of some of the experiences you've had, and also the fact that, you know, we don't typically have CFOs join us on the pod. So it's actually been great to get that your perspective from in that regard as well. But although I tend to think that you're not your typical CFO in regards to how you look at the world. So kudos to you on that. But one last question, and this is asking you to go back to the very beginning. So go back to when you were first starting at Deloitte. And if you could give yourself one piece of advice at the beginning of your career, based on everything you've learned since then, what would that one piece of advice be?
Yeah, that's thank you, thank you, Efrain. I would love to continue to talk about, you know, Weleda maybe another time. But a piece of advice, you know, I think what helped me a lot is to understand what you are good at. And it's really funny that you say I'm not a typical CFO, because what I understood fairly early is that what I was good at was putting numbers, but, you know, in a bigger context, right? Putting numbers in the context of a strategy, of a context of a consumer, of a context of a value chain, you know. But, you know, making our number, you know, alive and serve a purpose, actually. So it's funny that you say I'm not a typical CFO. I don't see myself as a typical CFO. And if you follow my career, it's funny actually when I reflect on it that, you know, I was never a CFO only. You know, I was a CFO plus other things. And I think that's you know, to my younger self, I would say understand that very quickly, what you are good at, you know, numbers and engaging people, numbers and, you know, looking at the bigger picture. And I think then you follow your passion, you know, and that's what I would say to this young guy at Deloitte.
The young guys you still are, and you were when you met in your MBA.
Young at heart, young at heart.
So Efrain and I will try, Raphael, to summarize what you told us now. So, well, first of all, I think as Efrain said, like, this is the first time actually we interview a CFO here. So for me, and this is not a function that I'm that familiar with from my own career, because I do like sales, marketing, and logistics roles. And I thought it was fascinating to understand, and this has helped me understand why so many CEOs come from the finance function, from the CFO role, because I've seen that you don't only look at the numbers. Wow. You are like looking at like something as to a company as culture, for example, or you just look at the, like, where the company is going in general. So that was super interesting to me.
Well, and I would say, I would take it a step further, which is to say that I think what you've shown us in sharing your story has been how you embody both the role of a performance-driven CFO as well as somebody who is also purpose-driven as a leader as well. And I think that combination of being to be able to do both those things, both performance and purpose, well, is a magic power, right? It's the secret sauce for people. So I think it's like I said, we don't speak to many CFOs, but I guess from the interaction that we've had, you know, it's not something that's common in everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you, Efrain. You know, that's what my passion is.
Well, it shows. It definitely shows. It comes.
I think another thing that came through in this conversation, even if we didn't speak out it directly, is really like how much value it adds to kind of as soon as you can to go international and get that international experience. Because that doesn't mean you'll never come back, like to Europe, for example, if you go to the US. I mean, now you're managing a company where the most of its sales are in Europe, right? But you did that role, that work in the US, that agility, that cultural sensitivity, and that probably, it helps you like be more self-aware. It's just like such a great tool for the rest of your career. It's so strong you didn't even mention it because it's so embedded in you, probably.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I often say, you know, that you know, being able to go outside or, you know, abroad teach you a lot about yourself. And I don't, Efrain, for you, it must be the same. You know, I mean, you have been 15 years now in France or something like that. So you're almost French. But, but you know, when you step out of your little comfort, you know, zone, essentially it makes you to reflect a lot why you were used to do certain things the way you were doing it, and why those people are doing it differently, and how, so it expands really your self-understanding of yourself, but also, it opens up your mind, right? So it's true that, for me, it became very natural, but that's an advice I would definitely give to anyone, to go out of your own culture, because it's going to teach you about yourself. It's going to teach you about others, of course, but it's going to open up your mind,
Absolutely. And one last thing that I thought that came through loud and clear in our conversation was the importance of culture. And I think you really nailed it when you said it's not what you put on paper. And I think, Daniel also references as well, but it's what you do, right? And being able to be that role model as a leader. And, it's as you said, Daniel, sometimes we tend to think, oh, well, that should be something that HR handles, right? But I think what you demonstrated is, and what you continue to demonstrate is that, it's really everybody's responsibility, right? And it's like,
exactly.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I often tell my team, be the change you want to see, right? If you want things to change, don't expect anyone to come and to change it for you. The solution is in our hands. And if we are like 20 leaders and we start to act differently and be the change that we want to see, the change is there. It's done,
Yeah.
So, I agree with you, Efrain. But we have been used to those big companies and to the, very, how can I say, corporate messages. But at the end of the day, it's people, it's a group of people, be the change you want to see, and that's going to go a long way.
Yeah. I think something interesting, with Weleda is like very good example of that. When you're driving your career to not necessarily go to the company that's doing the best, or that's the market leader, or that's been growing for the last 10 years. Sometimes it's like these hidden gems of companies, like probably Coty when you joined it, now Weleda, that have like huge heritage, great product, and just need to like exploit that potential, no? Because that's really where you can drive change and where there'll be more openness to transformation. No?
Yeah, that's very interesting, Daniel, what you say here, because I think there is an inverse proportional relationship between the sexiness of a job and the interest and the real interest of the job, right? Yeah. So, and I think, it needs to fit. I often say you are where you are. Your life, you are exactly where you need to be, right? But you're right. It's there are some companies well known that you can learn from, and that's great. But it's not necessarily where you will have the most impact or the most fun or the most growth or the most learning. And sometimes you need to go into, you say hidden gems, but sometimes in a bit of the beaten path, I would say. And oftentimes, those are great opportunities as well for personal growth, career development, and fun, frankly.
Yeah, which, by the way, with you and FMCG, to quote that movie, when you thought you were out, they pulled you back in.
I was going to say that scene from The Godfather was going through my mind as well. Raphael, we've taken enough of your time. Like I said, we could talk for hours about
it. Was great.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been definitely great for me, and hopefully for Daniel as well as our audience as well.
For sure. It was the first CFO interview. It won't be the last one. So thanks so much, Raphael. We had a lot of time. Thanks to our audience for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys every Wednesday and every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. Central European time. Have a great day. Cheers.